If you didn't watch yourself, you might come flying out there with no wings. In the heart of downtown Los Angeles lies a place engulfed in mystery. Known for its enigmatic history and sinister reputation, this building has been the site of chilling crimes, mysterious deaths, and unsolved tragedies, captivating the public's imagination for decades. Since its construction, the Cecil Hotel has seen at least 17 major incidents, each unfolding under strange or ambiguous circumstances. In this grand and majestic establishment, with over 600 rooms resonating with untold secrets, our story begins. The Cecil Hotel, an engineering marvel inaugurated in 1927, became a sophisticated destination for tourists and business travelers wanting to experience the glamour of the early years of Los Angeles. In its first times, the Cecil Hotel served California's elite class, symbolizing luxury and refinement, until the Great Depression hit. This difficult and dark period in American history led to a drastic decline in the hotel's reputation. By 1929, the hotel was transformed into a residence for transients and individuals seeking affordable lodging. The surrounding Skid Row neighborhood struggled with poverty and crime, housing one of the largest and most stable homeless population in the United States. The first incident occurred just a few months after the hotel's opening. 52-year-old Percy Ormond Cook was discovered deceased in his hotel room after taking his own life. He had been trying to reconcile with his wife, who had rejected his advances. Just 5 years later, 46-year-old W.K. Norton was found laying on the floor with no signs of life. He had been found by a maid just a couple of hours after his passing. The LAPD retrieved a number of pills in his vest pocket, which later were discovered as poisoned capsules. Investigators also determined that he was staying in the hotel under a false name. The reason for the false identity, or why he committed such an act, remains unknown. During the following 8 years, at least 5 more people lost their lives in the hotel. As years went on, voices started to circulate in the area. It was hard to believe that all these demises were just coincidences, perhaps attributed to the difficult economic situation the United States was suffering from. But what if the place was home to a psychopathic killer? Or what if the people inside were psychopathic? "19-year-old Dorothy Purcell and her 38-year-old boyfriend, Ben Levine, were staying on one of the top floors of the hotel. In the middle of the night, Dorothy awoke with a severe abdominal pain. Upon reaching the bathroom, she realized it wasn't a normal stomach ache. Up until that point, she was unaware that she was pregnant. Dorothy was going into labor. Not wanting to wake her boyfriend up, she eventually delivered the baby in the bathroom, alone. But things took a dark turn very quickly. Thinking she had miscarried, as she claimed to have felt no movement in her stomach during her pregnancy, she left the bathroom, reached the bedroom, and threw the baby out the window. The lifeless baby was found the morning after on the roof of a nearby building. News of the incident spread like wildfire. Contrary to Dorothy's statement, investigations revealed that the baby had been born alive. ultimately charging Dorothy with murder. She was eventually found not guilty due to her alleged mental confusion at the time of the incident and committed to a mental hospital. Back in the 80s, I would never go farther than the 6th floor. People used to get killed up there. Once they got a guy in the room, they would rob him, beat him up, and throw him out the window. Over the course of less than 20 years, the Cecil Hotel continued to face dark times. 4 more lives were lost in the complex. In October 1962, a couple checked into a room on the 9th floor. 27-year-old Pauline Otten and her husband were involved in a heated argument during their stay at the hotel. Unexpectedly, when Pauline was left alone in the room, she left a note behind and made the fateful decision to jump from the 9th floor window. When the police arrived on scene, they discovered not only Pauline's lifeless body on the sidewalk, but also another body underneath her. It belonged to a man in his 60s, identified as Mr. George Giannini. The initial theory proposed by investigators was that both individuals had jumped from the same window at the same time. However, upon closer examination, certain details contradicted this hypothesis. Mr. Giannini's hands were found still in his pockets, and he was wearing shoes at the time of his death. Such findings made the theory of a joint suicide highly unlikely. If he had jumped with Pauline, his hands would not have been in his pockets, and his shoes would probably have fallen off during the fall. As a result, this strange discovery pointed to a more tragic scenario. Pauline's leap had claimed not only her own life, but also that of an innocent bystander who was just walking below, minding his own business. One was a figure who stayed upstairs on the 14th floor, was paying $14 a night for his room. He liked to scare, torment, rape human beings. Walking in his stained clothes, barefoot, up to his floor and into his room, repeatedly. And that's cool, no one's got a problem with that, because it's that kind of heavy place. The Richard Ramirez presence at the Cecil tells you a lot about the kind of place that it was. During 1985, the serial killer Nat Stalker, Richard Ramirez, was said to be residing on the 14th floor of the hotel. He allegedly stayed there for a short period of time between the murders, from 1984 to 85. The hotel's low-profile residents apparently allowed him to blend in while awaiting for his next victim. Kim Cooper, a noted author of the Los Angeles True Crime Tour Guide, has repeatedly asserted that the Night Stalker did, in fact, traverse the halls of the Cecil Hotel during his stay. This theory is also supported by 36-year-old Raul Enriquez, who was still residing in the 14th floor of the hotel and said to have had numerous conversations with Ramirez. Details of these interactions are not clear, but it appears that Ramirez confessed that he liked to listen to rock music and smoking not-so-legal substances in his room. However, despite their conviction, tangible proof of Ramirez's presence at the Cecil remains elusive. I could not find any trace of factual evidence that Richard Ramirez indeed stayed at the Cecil in the 80s. No pictures of him, nor written notes which would testify having seen him roaming in the hotel's hallways. It's one of these hotels that's well known for this type of crime, a place where serial killers would let their hair down. in September 1990, a sex worker was found strangled inside the building. The peculiar manner of how she was found, however, was what drew a greater attention to the case. The lady was found suffocated with her own bra. Self-inflicted death was immediately discarded by investigators, who were now on the hunt of the killer. In 1974, a similar incident occurred in Austria. An 18-year-old girl named Margaret Schaffer was taken in the same manner. The culprit turned out to be Jack Unterweger, subsequently sentenced to life in jail. He had been granted parole in early 1990, thanks to his good conduct. Unterweger gained modest success after having written numerous novels, both when he was in and out of jail. Thanks to his fame, he left Austria to move to Los Angeles in order to pursue his writing career. His true intentions, however, were very different. Satisfying his sadistic desires and engaging in a killing spree, his preferred victims, transients and sex workers. Skid Row was perfect for his plan. After the first one, Unterweger took the lives of 2 more sex workers during his 5 weeks of permanence at the Cecil. He was only caught 2 years later, where he committed 9 more killings before being arrested. In 1994, Unterweger was sentenced to life in prison, this time without possibility of parole. That same night, he was found dead in his cell. A British couple is staying in one of the middle floors of the Cecil Hotel. As they go to open the sink to brush their teeth, they realize that the water pressure is unusually low. Their concern deepened upon discovering that the same water used for cooking and showering in the past days had an unexpected dark brownish tint to it, along with an off-putting taste. Alarmed by their findings, they alerted the hotel's receptionist. The couple was relocated to a room just 2 floors above, believing that the issue was isolated to their initial room. However, they still encountered the same water problems. As the situation persisted, the hotel's management decided to call a maintenance worker to inspect the building's water tanks located on the rooftop. The Cecil Hotel has 4 1,000-gallon tanks that supply water to various facilities, including rooms, a coffee shop, and a kitchen. Santiago Lopez, the hotel's maintenance worker assigned to the task, reached the top of the building. He climbed the ladder to the main tank, suspecting it might be empty or clogged. As he peeked into the tank, he made a grim discovery. The lifeless body of a young woman, with her face turned upward, was floating inside the tank. Immediate investigations were launched, identifying the deceased as 21-year-old Canadian tourist Eliza Lamb, who had been missing and not communicating with her parents for 19 days after checking into the Cecil Hotel. Investigators started to review the video surveillance footage of all the CCTV cameras recording during the days of the disappearance. No real hint of evidence came from the recordings. But suddenly, during a viewing session, Eliza is seen entering the elevator. What started as fairly normal behavior from her behalf, it's going to change quite quickly. She starts by pressing the buttons from top to bottom, takes a glimpse outside the elevator, and comes back inside. She's then seen staying in one corner, almost as if she's hiding from someone. Eliza's then seen moving her hands erratically. She finally leaves the frame, never to be seen again. I thought like I could see the vision of what this hotel could actually be. In a desperate attempt to overcome the tragedies of the previous decades, the hotel embarked on an ambitious revitalization and rebranding effort that would, hopefully, redefine its identity. The owners chose to rename and completely rebrand a substantial portion of the hotel, labeling it Stay Main, a name reflecting its location on the main street of Los Angeles. As part of the renovation, 3 floors underwent a dramatic transformation. The first 2 floors were designed to accommodate long-term tenants seeking stability and affordable housing, while the upper 3 were reserved for the new Stay Main short-term clients, including tourists and budget-conscious travelers. However, due to limited funds, the rest of the hotel retained its original layout and were still inhabited by the Cecil Hotel's enduring residents. People who had recently been released from jail, drug addicts, and people with criminal backgrounds. This part of the building remained a stark reminder of the hotel's challenging past. The reception areas were split into 2 separate entrances. One entrance remained under the same name, tailored to tenants and long-term occupants. The other was reserved for the short-term Stay Main residents, providing a welcoming and efficient check-in experience. Despite these clear divisions, there remained one common space where the worlds of the Stay Main and Cecil Hotel inhabitants would inevitably meet. The elevator. This small, confined space became a macrocosm of the hotel's complex identity, where guests from different social backgrounds shared brief, sometimes uncomfortable moments in their journeys within the building. If we pay attention to the surveillance footage, we can observe a strange phenomenon. Why are the elevator doors not closing, even though Elisa is clearly pressing the buttons? Was there someone outside preventing the elevator from moving? This is the button pattern of the Cecil Hotel elevators. While it is true that Elisa pushed many buttons, which should have made the elevator move, she has likely also pressed the door hold button, which would halt the elevator for a couple of minutes. If Elisa did really go to the roof of the hotel alone, then this video might have shown her last moments alive, since a red dress was found at the bottom of the tank, supposedly the same one seen in the video. But how can a hotel guest have free access to the roof? There are 2 ways. Once at the 14th floor and out of the elevator, Elisa could have turned left into the hallway, then turned right, left, and up to a staircase, finally stumbling upon an alarm door, leading to the hotel roof. This may have been the easiest way out, but no door alarm went off during the time she was missing. The second option, however, is much more frightening. Instead of climbing the staircase, she would have continued straight, turned left, stumbling upon a window. When opened, this window directly accesses a balcony on the top floor of the hotel, with a ladder leading to the roof. There is no safety equipment preventing whoever climbed the ladder to fall down 14 stories into the densely populated street below. But why would a 21-year-old girl even attempt such an absurdity? After reviewing the autopsy report, investigators found no evidence of external trauma on Elisa Lam's body. As a result, they concluded that no third party was involved in her demise. The report also revealed that Elisa had not consistently taken her prescribed anxiety medication during her stay at the hotel. Her sister also reported that when Elisa was not taking her pills, she experienced visions, heard voices, or thought she was being followed. This phenomena led to her hospitalization and subsequent diagnosis with the most severe form of bipolar disorder. However, the exact motivation behind her actions remains unclear to this day. Investigators theorized that she believed she was in danger, which prompted her to climb the ladder, open the tank hatch, and ultimately plunge into the tank to hide from a hypothetical murderer. The removal of her clothes may have been a desperate attempt to reduce her weight so that she could swim back up once she realized what she had done. In the final report, the investigators finally ruled Elisa Lam's death an accidental drowning. It is time for a change. This is what New York City hotelier Richard Bourne also probably thought. In 2014, Bourne bought the Cecil Hotel for $30 million, and a year later, a company by the name of Simon Barn Development acquired a 99-year ground lease on the complex. The renovation plan comprehended a complete redevelopment of all the hotel floors, from the main lobby to the topmost floor. After a year-long stop for COVID, the hotel finally reopened its doors as a permanent supportive housing project in late 2021. In the social media era, the Cecil Hotel had been catapulted towards a whole nother level of notoriety. The hottest topic: is the Cecil Hotel haunted? No. On a serious note, one might be routed to think that perhaps this building was home to paranormal events, or was a place with some sort of dark energy. Certainly the number of individuals who lost their lives here is considerable, but zooming out and taking into consideration the difficult economic situation in the early 30s, the rise of serial killers in the late 1900s, topped with the poor conditions of the Skid Row area, we can see why the Cecil Hotel was home to these many cases. One thing is certain though: once you come across the Cecil Hotel story, it becomes like a scary movie that never ends. It's full of horror and creepy vibes that stick with you long after you leave.